Welcome to this podcast is making me thirsty, the number one destination for Seinfeld fans. This episode 114. Today's guest has over 70 TV and film credits to her name as a hairstylist, including CSI New York, Murphy Brown, Moonlighting, Dear John, and of course, she was the hairstylist on Seinfeld for over 100 episodes, spanning seasons 5 through season 9. Please welcome Judy Crown. Judy, thanks for joining.
Thank you so much. It's great to be
here. Thanks for joining us, Judy. This is a special treat for us because we've talked to some guest stars, so many writers, but no one I think that's been on represented over 100 shows. So that's quite a testament to you. So take us back. Your first episode, I believe, and you tell us if I'm wrong, according to IMDb, was the masseuse, which was mid-season of season 5. So tell us a little bit about how the job came about.
I'm not exactly sure how the job came about, but I think that the first episode I did was the mannequin one with she had there was a mannequin in the store that had the same hairstyle as she did, but I believe I started then, but I didn't get screen credit till the next one. I think that was just a mistake. I think that's true, but because I remember that episode and I remember doing the mannequin, but I'm very confused about how that all came about.
The one you're talking about is the pie, no? The episode that you're referring to is the pie.
Yeah, I just remember the mannequin and the hair and the mannequin.
Yeah, that's the pie. Yeah, I mean, I think
season 5. That's actually after.
But they might have filmed it first.
They might have filmed it first, though. We don't know the order of filming, but that makes sense.
Well, I think they probably filmed them in order, and the only reason I'm confused is because to prepare myself to meet you guys and to know what the heck I'm talking about, I had to watch all those episodes all over again. So I've spent the last week,
Oh my gosh.
Looking at all those episodes. So
very cool. So you worked on the mannequin one? So did you actually have to make the hair on the mannequin to look like Elaine? Oh, that's interesting. Maybe you can kind of touch on that a little bit, I guess.
Well, it was very funny. It was fun to do. As I look back on it, I didn't think I did a very good job on that particular thing, but it was a very funny episode. I loved working on that show.
Yeah. So take us back. So you were doing Growing Pains, obviously Moonlighting, like a lot of
I also prominent
designing women, of course.
Delta Burke.
But obviously, so Seinfeld obviously had a hair designer for the first 5 seasons, and then you got the call. Like, was there a relationship with someone on the show? Like, how did you get the Seinfeld gig? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember. I have no idea.
I remember 2 seconds.
I have no. My eyes are watering. I was under a fan. I don't know how I got the job. I know the hairdresser that was there before, but I don't know why. I don't know why they quit or were fired or what the situation was. I just got a call. Do you want to do Seinfeld? And I said, okay. It was
very cool.
Simple, and I didn't have anything to do with, what happened before. I didn't have any knowledge of that.
Okay. And what, because we talked to, we talked to a costume designer from the show, and she had mentioned that Jerry had told her that he wanted the show to seem like it was almost timeless. Like the outfits they were wearing shouldn't really be put into any, you can watch it 20 years later and it still kind of looks the same. I don't know. Did he give you any type of notes like that or anything like that between him and Larry David as far as what they were looking for, anything like that?
No, they didn't say a thing to me about that.
What did they say anything to you about?
To do what I wanted. Now, of course, my biggest focus was Julia.
Right.
And I thought, in thinking back over the shows, I thought I changed her hair pretty quick. But I think it took me a season and a half to get her to change her hair. And so then we cut her hair a little shorter and had it more free flowing and curly and all that. And I think she looked much better. TV Guide voted her. I don't know what season it was, but they voted her best hair in television, and they invited me to the Oprah Winfrey show.
Wow.
Chicago. And so that was very nice. I got a little trip to Chicago for a couple of days, and it was very nice. And I like that a lot.
Hey, from Oprah to this podcast is making me thirsty. Very similar audience sizes, so we're glad to have you.
Now,
So actually, speaking of Elaine, I'm going to pull up, like I said, let me pull up a couple photos, and we'll just give me 1 second and kind of take us down memory lane, if you don't mind.
okay.
Let's see. We'll edit this out, Tony. Obviously,
I was going to say, while he's doing that, I'm curious how much input the actors had in their style. Like, was Julia involved in that when you made the change, or how much did they come to you, or did you go to them first as far as that goes, as far as changing the look?
No, it was just between me and Julia.
Oh wow!
We decided between us to change her hair. I mean, they never told her how she should wear her hair or anything, and so when the time came and she decided she wanted something different, I think I urged her to change it. I liked her hair much better, more free flowing and all of that. It could get messy and funny easier. And
all right, can you guys see the slides?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's. I mean,
hairstyle. Yeah.
This is the main one we're talking about. I'm probably in the minority here, Judy. Don't get mad at me. I loved the poof. Loved it.
Nice. That's nice.
And you're right. It took about 1.5 years because I think she switched. You came around mid-season 5 and she switched it over to season 7. But
yeah.
So tell us about, like, when you first got there and you saw this, kind of what some of those conversations were like with Julia and kind of how the process started. Bringing that down.
When you start a show in the middle of a season, you kind of go along with what's there already. And, there's a certain amount of time you need to gain the person's confidence to let them know that you know what you're doing. So if she says, I want my hair like this, I go, okay. And I just do it. And as we got to know each other over the season, was when I was able to convince her to change her hair.
Wow. And that just happens, like, she's sitting in that chair. Like, what kind of small talk do you and Julia Louis-Dreyfus talk about doing hair?
That's a real hard question. Whatever was the subject of this stupid thing. It was whatever the subject of the moment was. Also, we didn't do in the makeup room, we didn't do a whole lot of small talk because the writers were always coming in and saying, your lines are changing, and so you have to do this instead of that. And I was totally amazed by them because they go, okay. They didn't even write it down. They didn't do anything, and they said it line for line so perfectly. Their memories were just fantastic about their lines. And so, I didn't do a lot of chit-chatting when I was working on their hair.
All right, so this is an interesting one. We just so it's also an audio podcast. I just want to set it up. So we have 3 different pictures of Elaine here. We have from the strike when she gets a steam bath on the bottom there from Kramer with the hair, the flatted and everything. Yeah. And then the top right is her when she had those strands going a little bit. It was only a few episodes, but that's a season 7 look. And then the one to the left is her more iconic look that I believe you're talking about with the curls. Yeah. That she pretty much had from 7 through 9. Maybe touch on all 3 of these, if you will. I mean, I think the bottom one is the most interesting because I'm sure you had to do a lot there with the steam and everything.
Well, that's very funny because her hair is really naturally curly. So that is really the way her hair looks when it's wet. That's it. So there wasn't anything you have to do to that except make her hair wet. So that was easy. The other one, she does a lot of, she did a lot of moving around with her head. And she liked it when she would get a little disheveled, when some crisis would come along and she would get a little disheveled. And would be one of those times. I don't remember, that particular what the reason was for that particular shot, but
yeah, it's interesting how you mentioned you kind of just thought of this idea. I mean, when we actually think about Elaine, we think when her hair changes, the actual character changes. She went from kind of cutesy Elaine with the poof to this more business-like, empowered woman.
Yeah, she got a better job. She became president of a company. So her hair and her clothes changed along with her character.
So I guess my question there is, was there any influence from Larry on that, knowing she would kind of shift in character and wanted a different look, or you kind of just coordinated that with Julia and maybe the costume designer?
Just with Julia. The only time Larry David ever spoke to me about hair is one night I was having dinner out. It was a Sunday night. I was having dinner out with my husband, and Larry David called me up on the phone, and he said, "Listen, I got to have a ponytail tomorrow." And I go, "Okay, for what? What? She's got to look like a Tanya Harding person." And I go, "Okay. And what color ponytail do you need?" "Platinum." "Okay." So I had to see this girl the next day, and we were shooting it the next day. I never saw that episode in all the episodes I was watching.
I think it's the understudy you're talking about, possibly Bette Midler.
It could be. I don't think so. Well, it could be.
It's the Tanya Harding twist. That's what sort of made me think of it.
I'm going to have to go back and look at that, because I saw the Bette Midler episode as well when I was doing my little research here, and I never noticed that. That's really terrible. Anyway, so the next morning I showed up with everything, all the hair pieces that I had accumulated over years and years that were any shade of blonde, because when someone says platinum, it could be white or it could be light blonde. It could be a lot of different colors. And since we had to shoot it that next day, I didn't have a chance to kind of, wander around and find something. So I brought everything I had in the next day, and we made a ponytail for this girl. And the next thing I heard from Larry was, "Good job." And that was it.
Nice. This next one was one of our favorites too, with the delicate genius Wendy Malick. It's part of the running joke in the episode that her hair is old fashioned. She has that kind of curl at the bottom, like the '60s yearbooks we all see. Maybe speak to this one a little bit. What was the direction here? I'm assuming they kind of, since it was a part of the joke, they must have given you some input, I hope.
No, but I read the script.
Right.
And actually, my my assistant there were 2 hairdressers on the show and 2 makeup artists, and the other hairdresser did her hair at my direction. So she did a good job.
So it sounds like a lot of trust, huh? I mean, how is that different from, you mentioned designing women, growing pains? Like, these guys just kind of, you read the script and interpreted how you wanted to? Is that how sitcoms go?
No, not necessarily. On Designing Women, there was a lot more input about hair, but it really was mostly between the actor and the actress and me. There were very few incidents, just like on Seinfeld, where there was a specific thing that they wanted me to do with the person's hair to relate something that was going on in the script. But the actresses had their own preferences about how they wanted to do their hair. On Designing Women, at the moment we did one scene on Designing Women that was a flashback to the 40s. And of course I had to do everybody's hair in a 40s hairstyle. And then another time, and that one, doing that scene got me an Emmy. So that was fun. And another time I had to do, what's his name? The actor, I can't remember his name.
What show?
on Designing Women to do kind of cornrows in his hair. They wanted him to have cornrows, and so I did cornrows in his hair. So there's not a lot of major supervision of how they want people's hair.
Huh. Well, we always enjoyed Mike Seaver's curls, so great job there. So George, okay,
that one,
okay.
Jason Alexander is a wonderful friend and one of the funniest people I ever met in my whole life. And when anybody, it's very jokingly, but anybody that says, I don't have to do anything to Jason's hair, he gets up in arms. He has to have his hair blown dry more than anybody else. So that's his joke. And he was, of everybody, the most, why he didn't win an Emmy on that show is absolutely beyond me, because he is so unlike the character he plays. I mean, it is a real creation because he is a real gem of a human being.
Yeah, I mean, God, well said. I mean, he had stiff competition from, his own castmate, but although those are like secondary characters, any of these guys could have got a lead character. Yeah.
Yeah, they were all very funny, but Jerry basically played himself. Michael Richards has one thing he does, and that's what he does. Jason can do anything you give him. I worked with him on so many different shows and things. And he has played so many different characters, really kind people, George, all sorts of things. He is so incredibly versatile.
So from a hair perspective, again, I would say seasons 2 through 7, he had this kind of, a little wider angle on the sides. Let me take it to the next picture. I noticed season 8, he really went short here on the sides.
Yeah. He wanted it cut short, so he got a short haircut.
That was it.
Yeah, that's it.
Now, what about his chest hair? Did you do all hair? What's the kind of...
That's not my department.
Yeah, it's interesting. Then season 9, he went back to fill it out. Just season 8, he went tight, which was interesting. And maybe only I noticed that, but or I'm sure you did as well.
I noticed it too, yeah.
So wait, let me ask you, are hairstylists, are you trimming and cutting this hair or no? It's just kind of...
No, I cut his hair. I mean, I did cut his hair on that show. Yeah.
It's interesting, Judy. You, speaking of cutting hair, you came after, I think your first episode was after the Barber, if you remember that episode in season 5, but it was centered all around, obviously, the Barber and Jerry getting a bad haircut. I'm wondering if you...
I sort of vaguely remember that, yeah.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
He did have his own person who cut his hair, but I would, kind of fiddle with it a little bit to, if there was something out of place or something like that. But he was never one to get into the hair department much, although he was a wonderful person. One of the things he would do when he would come into the makeup room, when he did those stand-ups in the beginning of the show, he would do them really at the end of the show when we were shooting it. And he would come in and get makeup. And I would just, have sort of conversation. In conversation, I would ask him questions. And he said that he told me one time that it was really nice for me to come in, for me to sit there and ask him questions and take his mind off things, because because these jokes he was doing that we were getting ready to film, he wrote that day. And when he goes out on the road, his jokes he takes to obscure places and tests them out for months before he takes them to like the Tonight Show or something like that. and he thought it was nice that I would sit and talk to him before the thing. It was fun. It was fun asking him questions. And
That's great. That's so great to hear.
yeah.
It's so great to hear those kind of stories. The one we're looking at now is from the episode The Secretary, where Vicki
Yes.
Lewis plays Ada, and she has two different hairstyles. She's very buttoned up with her hair very up and tight, and then she lets it
Yes.
down, and George ends it up. What happens there.
Yeah.
This might have been a fun one to kind of get the dual looks for her. And just as the first kind of guest star we kind of touched on too, as far as how that works. We've had some guest stars on that kind of said they did their own makeup, or they might have done their own hair. But in this case, I'm assuming you might have played a part in this one. That's why we brought it up.
I didn't play a part in doing her hair, but in supervising the other hairdresser. Some actresses that come on the show, they don't seem to ever do their own hair, but a few have had their own hairstylist. Like Bette Midler had her own hairstylist, and a couple other people brought their own hairstylist because that's what they do.
Yeah, that makes sense. A bigger star like Bette.
Mm-hmm.
What's next, O'Hara? There you go.
All right. Well, so what we're showing here is the famous Scofflaw episode, I believe, when George got the toupee. This had to be a fun one.
It was really, really fun. I searched everywhere. I have a lot of toupees and things like that. I even have some of Jason's toupees. I've done work with him on other things, but that was later. I went to this wig place I know, and I tried to find the worst toupee I could find. And so I brought back several of the worst toupees I could find. And the funny thing is that when you put hair on him, he looks so cute. It is really hard to make him look bad, even though that that's a toupee. When you see it on screen, it's not.
Judy, it doesn't look bad, in my opinion.
No, I know it's hard. You cannot make him look bad when you put hair on him. You can't. It just makes him so cute.
So like him, John Lovitz, like you kind of sat them down and like worked the toupee into their head, like is it that kind of simple?
Work it into their hair. You just put it on their head. I can't remember what I did with John Lovitz. I remember seeing the episode, but I can't remember particularly what I did for him.
So this one, I mean, I'm assuming Jerry and Larry, I don't know, had to sign off, or they must have just been laughing their ass off when you kind of brought this in, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, but I tell you, one criticism was that it looked too good. It was really, really hard to make him look bad. I mean, they wanted him to have the worst hairpiece that you could find, and I found the worst hairpiece I could find. You plop it on his head, and he looks cute. Nothing I can do.
Oh, this is a great one. This is the shower head. So they all had the low flow hair.
Yeah.
So they all had their hair batted down. You had Newman, Kramer, even Kramer with his hair down, Jerry.
Yeah.
That must have been fun. What was the effect here? How did we get to this?
It was real easy. You just get a water bottle and you spray their hair, and their hair gets flat, and it's done. That's it. It's not a lot of work.
Oh, you're
downplaying this because this is a classic. I mean, you did it with Morty, you did it with everyone had it. It's just so funny just to see, Kramer with his hair down, Jerry with his hair like this. It's classic scene.
It's fun ruining people's hair for a shot,
Yeah, Judy, you're an Emmy winner. Stop being so modest. I know you put a lot of work into this.
No, not a lot.
All right, so this is the episode Jerry when he switches apartments. Kenny Rogers Road is a favorite of many in the later seasons. So, I mean, a little different, but Jerry, I think, of the four, stayed kind of the most consistent with his hairdo over the years. What do you think about that? And what do you have to do to make him more Kramer-like in this episode?
It goes by so quick. It's not like it has to last for a week. It just has to last for few hours, and so it's not hard to mess his hair up. He's a very neat guy, I mean, his character is very much like him. He's a neat freak, and
Yeah.
so when he does that, the uncomfortableness of having his hair not look right really works for him, for his character.
Now, this is a dumb question, but before every episode, are you fixing all their hair? Like, does everyone sit down with you, or are some people like they come in and it's ready to go, like a Jerry?
Jerry's pretty much ready to go. He wears his hair the same way all the time. Nobody else comes ready. I mean, Jason, there's not a whole lot. He would kill me if he heard this. It's really, I used to, when his hair was a little longer, I used to blow it dry with a very tiny, round brush to get the waves out of it so it wasn't so wavy. So I would do that. And with Jason, a little bit in the back of his hair, on the top near his bald spot, there used to be a little dip where he didn't have hair. And so I would kind of fill that in with eyeshadow so his hair looked more symmetrical in the back. And in the front, across the top of his head, I would dust a little eyeshadow and his hair would look like a little thicker. But that's all I would do for him. And Michael Richards' hair was basically the same all the time.
Yeah, he'd be already with his hair up like that. He would come in sort of already there, huh?
Yeah, he'd come in like that.
Oh, interesting.
And that when you joined the show, that was that was established, and that was kind of the big thing. So there was a little
bit more extreme as time went by.
Yeah, it's noticeable.
It wasn't so noticeable in the earlier shows, but later on it got more extreme.
Yeah. You mentioned that before we get to this, I just had to touch on something. You mentioned George with the blow dryer and the hair. Just reminded me of a scene where he's looking at a picture of Dennis Franz on his door in the bathroom, and he's blow drying his hair with the brush. It was pretty funny because that's exactly how you just described it.
Yes.
That's a great one because he was going for that look. What we're looking at here is the late great Estelle Harris, who we all loved. And the doll that sort of had to look like her. We were just wondering, you could touch on just working with Estelle, and also, was this doll part of your department, or was that more of a costume?
Yeah, no, it was. It was props. Props had to get the doll, but they came to me and asked me to fiddle with it, and so I did.
This is great. Yeah, they look so good together. Yeah, I mean, Estelle, I guess we didn't really touch a lot on the secondary characters, with the parents, Jerry's parents and Morty.
She was wonderful. And
Jerry.
I loved Liz Sheridan. She was just wonderful. I did her hair.
Liz Sheridan's
I did Estelle's hair too.
Estelle too, nice.
So, what's a typical day? I mean, a lot of the guest stars, they love kind of the sitcom life. It's I don't know if it's 9 to 5, it sounds like you're touching a lot of characters. Some of these shows you mentioned, The Pie had, a ton of guest stars in it. So what's kind of a typical day in the life of the hairdresser on the set of Seinfeld?
You know what? Seinfeld was not shot like a typical sitcom. Like, for instance, Murphy Brown would shoot their show on Friday. Seinfeld would shoot their show on, I think it was Wednesday, but we shot scenes on Monday and Tuesday for the show on Wednesday. So we worked three, sometimes 4 days a week on Seinfeld. And they were different. They were shot like single camera the other 2 days, and then we would come and shoot it like a sitcom. And we'd be there 11:30, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning by the time it was all over on the shoot day. Like when I did Dear John, I would go to work at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we'd get them ready. They'd shoot the show, and I was home leaving at 9:30. But that never happened with Seinfeld.
Huh. Interesting. Good old Judd Hirsch. I'm sure he was a lot of fun as well.
He was very funny.
All right, here we go, Judy. We're looking at more Elaine here and more. This is on the Bizarro Jerry, where you had I guess you had to mirror each character, right? With Jerry, George, and Kramer with Feldman over there. What can you tell us about this? Like, what did you get from the script, and how did you kind of design all these hairstyles?
Well, there really wasn't a lot of design to that. I mean, the guy over here. Well, I can't show you that, can I? The guy to the left of George.
Yeah, Kramer's
his hair was the way his hair was, and the guy to the right of George was, and he did not, and the guy to the left of George did not look really like Kramer. They were just, they really weren't mirror images. They were types of people.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
And Elaine, did she chop that off, or did you kind of wrap that up?
It was wrapped up.
Interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, Elaine, you did a lot with Elaine over those last few years.
Yeah, it was fun.
Versus, the first original 5.5 to 6 years.
Yes. It was really fun doing all of that.
This is
our last one.
So last one. It's an interesting one. It's a fun one where Jerry, there's like a flash forward to Jerry's future if he doesn't get married right before he proposes to Janeane Garofalo's character. And we show Kramer and Jerry sort of middle-aged. Kramer still has the poof, but not as big. His hair's longer in the back. Jerry's hair is a bit more gray and bigger. I just kind of, if you have any memory of this.
Actually, it's not, there's no more gray. We didn't put gray in his hair.
Oh, that's just lighting, I guess. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. It's kind of, frosted glass lighting kind of. We really never did very much with Jerry's hair.
Yeah. Even for that one, It's interesting. That was the last of the slides, right, O'Hare?
So that was the last of the slides. So, and Judith, we just hear from so many people like on the set how kind of everyone was so welcoming. It sounds like you and Jason and Jerry. It sounds like you guys had a great relationship. Yes. Any other? We talked to Wayne, Kennan, a lighting guy like Larry. Obviously, had you on speed dial. Like, tell us about some of the kind of relationship.
He called me once in all those years.
I guess.
I think I was on speed dial.
We can use his number if you still have it.
But yeah, tell us a little bit about kind of just the relationships you've fostered over the years. Maybe if you still talk to anybody from the old crew.
I still talk to Jason. I don't see Julia too much anymore. She's done a couple of series since. I was going to do a series with her after that, but I got sick. And I couldn't finish the show. I got sick the first night of the show, and I had to have surgery. And so I couldn't get over the surgery till the pilot was over, and it lasted about 2 weeks. And then so I didn't get to do that with her. And over time I was just doing other things, and so we never did work. We saw each other like at Television Academy things because I was on the board of governors, and so I would see a lot of people that I knew and had worked with. But I don't really keep it. I used to go to Julia's house and cut her hair too, just on a regular basis. But over the years, I that sort of waned away, and I never did have much of a relationship with Michael Richards. He was a little too frantic for me. But I still talk to Jason. That's and great. I've done several things. I did a TV movie called Bye Bye Birdie with him.
Oh, right.
And I did another thing in Canada with him where he wore a piece in Bye Bye Birdie, and he wore a piece in this other thing was called the Man Who Saved Christmas. I think we did that in Canada. That was really fun to do, and I did another short thing with him after that, and then I've been retired for a while.
Oh,
So
beautiful. That's awesome.
I don't work with anymore.
We touched on obviously the main four, and you just mentioned your relationship with them. We've talked to so many guest stars on the show. Just kind of, if you remember any that kind of stuck out to you as far as like a guest star moment where you had like sort of a memorable anecdote to share that maybe, you had there's so many famous guest stars that came through, but maybe not, just anyone that maybe came through that you kind of remember.
The really famous guest stars like Bette Midler, she was really kind of remote. I mean, she was sort of surrounded by her people, and so it was difficult to, you couldn't really have a conversation with her or anything like that. Vicki Lewis was really fun and great, but I can't remember a particular anecdote with her. Let me think. It was a long time ago.
Yeah. The Tim Watley's of the world and Bryan Cranston, those types.
Oh, he was wonderful. He was very funny, and he was really, really a great guy. And Robert Wagner and Jill St. John were on the show.
Oh yeah, Danny Woodburn. We spoke with him. He's great.
Yeah,
in that show.
And, I didn't really have much to say to Robert Wagner. Jill St. John I had met a few times, so we were able to talk and stuff.
So after you do these guys' hair, do you go sit in the audience and watch the show? Like, were you a big fan of the show?
Oh, I was. Yes, I watched. I watched the show. Not every episode. Most times when I work on a show, I don't watch the show. I don't want to see it again after I've already done it. But I watched Seinfeld. But I wouldn't. You don't go and sit in the audience. You're backstage, and every time they say cut, you go out there and you make sure the person's hair. For my department, you go out there and you make sure the person's hair looks the way it did in the last take, so
Right.
that they can cut these takes together, and you don't see a difference.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Sometimes that's hard to do when Julia is flopping around and being crazy and all of that. And you have to go back and you have to make sure her hair looks the way it did in that last take, no matter what it looked like. And so that was, that was pretty, that would be the intense moments.
Yeah. And it's interesting, we're talking about an iconic show, and obviously you had a large part in that. And it's one of those shows. What I always find fascinating about Seinfeld, and it just, I don't know, maybe it's just one of those gizmic things or whatever. But if you look at like the four of them, you have Kramer's taller than the rest of them. Then Jerry's like kind of neat and put together. George is a little bit short and stockier and bald. And Elaine has her hair.
Really
you can like silhouette them like perfectly. And everyone knows like who they are and the way they look visually. And you can do that with just their heads and their hair. And it's all, okay, that's Seinfeld, right? It must have been, amazing to work on. Yeah.
And so sometimes I was very surprised when I was, doing my little research and watching all these episodes. There were some episodes I would watch and I'd go, I don't remember this, because there were so many and they went by so fast. Every week was a different episode. So you have to forget that episode, do this episode. So it was, I had a few little awakenings about episodes I felt like I was seeing for the first time, even though I worked on it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you were part of 102 episodes, and people at home probably don't think about the hair too much, but I mean, we just went pretty deep on how important hair was to the show, from Elaine to George, obviously Jerry to Kramer's famous high hair. So we can't thank you enough. This has been an absolute treat, Judy.
Thank you so much for, I don't know how anybody could be interested in the hairdresser.
Oh, but, come on now.
I'm so happy that I got to meet you guys and chat with you and be a part of your show. And so I'll watch the podcast and see.
Pleasure is all ours.
Thanks so much, Judy.
All right. Thank you.
Judy. This was great.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.